So, welcome, Will Kriski, to Raw and Cooked Vegan.
Thanks a lot.
It's nice to have you, man. And you're on your YouTube channel is say it for me.
It's called Potato Strong.
Potato Strong. All right, great. So, and I'm going to post throughout the video. I'll post, references to your site and your channel and all that. But let's start out with how you grew up and how your family approached diet and fitness.
Okay, so I grew up in Ontario, Canada, which near Niagara Falls, just for people that aren't too familiar with it. My background, like I'm Canadian, but my ancestry is like Eastern European, so Ukrainian, Polish type thing.
Ah, okay.
So, yeah.
Are you let me interrupt for a second. Are you watching the developments in Ukraine with interest?
Not with interest, I guess, but sort of lost touch with that aspect. But I did notice it because there's this movie called Klitschko. It's these brothers that were boxers, and one of them is running to be president. And I was joking around about the Ukraine because there's a Seinfeld thing, So there's a little funny thing just from my background, but it's not. There's no language or even many meals anymore. It's sort of a lost, second, third generation thing. But
Right.
But basically, a lot of meat and potatoes growing up, like roast beef and quartered potatoes, and some of the meals that would be like pierogies, kielbasa, sauerkraut.
Yeah.
We used to have this one meal. It's funny. I look back now. It's mashed potatoes on a plate with a bowl of buttermilk.
Huh.
You just sort of dip so I sort of look at it like root vegetables out there. Like Eastern Europe, it's cold. They're going to eat more root vegetables.
Right.
And some of these recipes came down, like my mom even, it's not really part of my mother in that generation, but the second or more. So just some of the recipes, I guess, would be passed down. The big turkey dinners on Thanksgiving and Christmas, and
yeah.
So that's kind of how it started.
Since you're kind of mentioning these things, how have you found it? A lot of us, we grow up with those kind of foods. They're intimate with us in our family. You remember your mom preparing them. How does that kind of panned out as you changed your diet later on? Do you miss those foods at all? Are you glad you're gone from them? Do you still have fond memories of them?
Well, to jump a bit to I guess to like start solution, we'll talk about it later. But part of the attraction to that was that comfort food aspect to it.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, if you think about like mashed potatoes or those, a lot of times those are like holiday meals because you have to peel the potatoes and all the other stuff that you make to go with them. And when I went into the Start Solution and sort of started I eat mashed potatoes every day now,
Yeah.
and we can talk about the fear of carbs and all that stuff that kind of permeates to some extent. But
Absolutely.
So it kind of brings you back almost, like even though there's no meat there, you're having shepherd's pie, roast beef. Shepherd's pie, mashed potatoes and gravy, the corn and the peas and all that without, say, the meat. So it's actually quite similar.
Okay.
In a way, so it's kind of.
All right. So at what age did I understand that you were vegetarian for a while before you got into the low fat scene? So at what age did you start to question traditional diet and make some changes?
Well, what happened was after I was in Ontario, I moved to Alberta, Canada, which is north of Montana, east of the Rockies. It's kind of a Calgary is a city that all the oil companies in that's where their home offices are. And then there's the oil sands way up in the north of Alberta. And it's a cattle country, oil and gas, that type of thing. I didn't really feel, I was sort of getting interested in some environmental aspects of, just the damage and then the starting to watch, if you watch the movies with like, slaughterhouses and documentaries, it's like, whoa, right? So
right.
Sometimes you see that and it takes a little while to completely, change your diet. You sort of, it really hits you to sort of, instead of going to the grocery store and just seeing a little piece of white plastic, thing that's wrapped in plastic, it's like, oh my God, this is what's actually happening. So,
Will, I'm glad that you're saying that because a lot of people in this movement are in it for health reasons, and I mean, many are in it for many different reasons, but uh, it's nice. It sounds like your initial motivation was simply ethics. You saw the way the animals were being treated, so you weren't so much addressing health issues when you embarked on a new diet.
No, the funny thing is, until this, I would say almost until this low-fat plant-based diet, I wouldn't say I never thought about health, but a large amount of it was animal. Like I've had a dog, and people that have animals tend to see the humanity or the intelligence of the animals.
Sure.
But yeah, that's where it started, is cutting out the meat. And I mean, with my potato strong right now, I'm sort of focusing right now on the diet as far as helping people make easy comfort food transition from meat and dairy, or even raw if they want to go to cooked food. But so I'm not talking at this point about that on my channel, but
Right.
I'm not sure where things will go down the road as far as that goes. But I have really strong, I'm quite angry. Hunting as well. I see, stuff. I mean, I live in a rural area now, but you hear stories about hunting and seals and
Right.
just stuff that drives me off the wall, because it's illegal. It's legal to get that type of thing. So the hunting and then the factory farming and
Yeah.
just all that stuff is really where it started, as far as just caring about the animals. Like when you buy, if you bought eggs, you try to get free range eggs, and
Right.
or like we had, somebody who had chickens, and that they're outside. Like, I know there are some marketing aspects to some of those terminology, like free run, free range is not really a lot of times that great either. But we had situations where we knew people that had chickens, and so you could get eggs from them. So that's kind of where it started.
Okay. So you had ethical concerns. You started changing things. Did you remove eggs, dairy, and meat? Or, well, it sounds like you kept buying eggs. What was the first thing you took out of your diet? And maybe talk about the progression of how you removed various things. And did you notice any health effects as you did that?
I would say I probably, pretty much started with red meat, like steak, hamburger, that type of thing.
Right.
That was gone. So it was kind of like chicken. Probably still had chicken. I wasn't a huge fish fan, just because I grew up in Ontario, like meat and potato person.
Yep.
But I didn't really 100% cut it out. Still ate some dairy. Like now I look at cheese, and I mean, it's hard to say exactly what I was aware of and what I wasn't. Or if you still sort of, well, I'm not killing the animal. But then you start reading about dairy, where they'll make the cow kind of stay pregnant, and they take the calf, and it's not fun. But you kind of think, well, the dairy cow is not killed for, at least while it's producing. I mean, there's lots of abuse there, but
Right.
just
Right.
from a scale perspective, it's like, okay, let's get rid of the killing and that type of thing. So
No,
I'd say,
this is a great point. I do think a vegetarian diet is more ethical than a meat eating diet. I agree with that. And I was vegetarian for many, many years before I finally saw the light and became vegan, but I do think that. So first you got rid of red meat, and then what happened? Did you eventually get rid of poultry?
yeah, probably chicken. There's that marketing spin about the health things. So you're kind of going red meat. So there is a little bit of health aspects, but chicken, and then fish. Now, fish, people think, fish are in the water, and it's like somehow even fishing is romanticized, and it's like, you're sticking a hook in their mouth, and maybe
Yeah.
they can't verbalize,
Right.
So, but when you go to the store and you buy a box of fish that's battered, like fish sticks, there's no connection to those animals really. So,
Definitely.
I look back with some embarrassment, but there is a transition there. So,
Right. Right.
yeah, that's kind of the progression. But the cheese was still there, the sour cream to some extent, the mayonnaise, and
Okay. So would you say you were a lacto-ovo vegetarian for several years?
yeah, quite a few years, like until recently. Basically, lacto ovo vegetarian. basically
Okay.
is what. Yeah, that's a good idea. Good way to
Okay.
describe it.
All right. And it's
So, lost you there.
that's what I was hoping would not happen, but we'll see. Hopefully, it won't continue to happen. But anyway, so you were lacto-ovo, and I saw a picture of you on your site where you looked pretty overweight, and I guess and that was on a lacto-ovo vegetarian diet, right?
Yeah, that wasn't that long ago. What what's happened in the last 10, 15 years, at least two times or so, was with the meat I hit. See, I'm 6 feet tall.
Yep.
I am a little more larger frame, muscular than some of the other people. So I was I wouldn't say I was obese or anything like that, but I probably peaked at low 220 as far as weight goes.
Okay.
Which is, you look at these other guys, but was 20 or 30 pounds, I guess it would be. I mean, if you want to get really, really lean and mean, then there's probably more to lose there. But and then within the last year, even probably 214, getting up, creeping up again, and that's without any meat or any. But
Okay. Now that's interesting. All right. So tell me, you're kind of getting into the effects of getting off of lacto-ovo. So how long have you been vegan?
So it's been since July 1st. We went 100%.
July 1st of 2013.
2013. Yeah.
All right, excellent. Okay. And since then, you've lost over 20 pounds, and now you said you're gaining a little bit back. First, before we continue on in this vein, let me ask you, when you were lacto-ovo vegetarian, did you notice any differences in your health compared to when you were eating meat?
I can't really say I have. I didn't notice anything.
Okay. All right.
Because when I was, what happens sometimes is when you eat a big filling fatty kind of meal,
Yep.
I would be full. The way my body works is, like, say I was making this nacho dip with sour cream, a bunch of stuff, and then a layer of Tex-Mex shredded cheese on top, and then 2 bags of big lime tortilla chips, nacho chips, and I'd go to bed. I'd eat that around 5 o'clock, like it's a square dish. I would go to bed at midnight and literally still be uncomfortable, like totally full. My body it just sat there. So when I had meat, big meals like that, it'd be the same thing. So that's why I don't really think there's a big difference, just because there are a lot of high fatty, heavy meals like that I didn't really notice a difference.
That's a great point. Before I get into the veganism, can you tell me a little bit about being vegetarian, and was making those changes at all difficult in terms of family, culture up in Canada? How did that go, just going vegetarian?
Well, what happened was I moved to Calgary in '93. See, I did engineering. I did structural engineering. I moved to Calgary, did a master's degree, so I wasn't really near my family.
Okay.
So it wasn't a huge deal, but I had friends and coworkers where it would be annoying. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I remember we went to an East Indian restaurant, like a buffet, and most of it's really heavy, chicken and curries and stuff like that. But they had a few vegetarian things. I mean, they're battered and everything too, but.
Right.
So I went, and there's a whole bunch of people at this table, and I have like some of this pakora, I think it is, and just a chickpea curry on rice. And they're like, "Vegetarian? Why are you vegetarian?" And I'm like, I don't really want to talk about it now. And they're all heavy, like really, even way heavier than even I was. And so that was some of the issues. I had friends, they tease you or bug you, but when you're actually eating, you don't really want to talk about. Like personally, I don't really. It's like, because I could start talking about slaughterhouses and stuff, and it's like, do you really want to start talking about that?
Yeah.
So I found it really, really annoying. So there's definitely annoyances there. One of my sisters went vegetarian and sort of some veganism, and my other sister makes a lot of that stuff when people visit, and so they're more open, to that. But I'm not there. Like, I'm not in Ontario or even Alberta now, so it's not as big a deal. But there's definitely been a lot of situations where it says, just let me eat what I want to eat. You eat what you eat. Like, I don't even want to like stick it in people's face. It's just, I just want to eat my meal.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
just leave me alone. You know, I'm not preaching to them at that particular time. So
I hear you, man. I hear you. All right, so we get back out to this change to vegan, and basically, do I understand right that you started to watch some videos? Was it McDougall or Esselstyn? Tell us about that. What prompted you to shift from vegetarian to vegan?
um, well, yeah. So basically, the interesting thing, and a few people have mentioned this, I think, is the Netflix aspect, because like I'm in Canada, but we have Netflix as well, and basically there's this documentary section. So there's like Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. Have you seen that one?
I have not. I have not. So I need to.
There's a guy in Australia who's this big 6'4" or 5" guy, really heavy, got all these skin problems. And he went health, plant-based and that. And then he went to the States and he found this trucker who was like massive, just hundreds and hundreds of pounds. And he had a lot of health issues, and they changed their diet. So what I noticed was they'd go in the cupboards. And so there's Engine 2 diet. There's a bunch of other ones on there that are all health food related.
Yep.
I mean, I've seen a lot of the slaughterhouse type movies, and I really don't want to watch those anymore. Like I know, what's going on, so I don't really need to see them. So there are some there too, but I just can't, watch that anymore. So
I can so relate to that, Will. It's really horrifying. It's really horrifying, and I can't watch them either, man. I start crying, man. I can't watch them. So, but anyway, so
that's what they did was they went through people's cupboards, and some of those movies had Dr. McDougall and Esselstyn, talking, and Rip Esselstyn from them. So what they would do is they'd go in people's houses and look at the kitchen and in the fridge and in the cupboards, and I sort of felt like, oh, they're looking at my cupboards in a way, like I could relate. I didn't have as much junk as they had, but the idea was to basically get rid of all that stuff.
Yep.
And at the same time, like I mentioned, the last year or two, like I started gaining weight again. You start feeling uncomfortable more and more, and I don't know. So we decided to go in and take everything out like they did, and we didn't have like chips and stuff lying around, but all the I don't know, it just clicked. It's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, it's kind of like you became ready. Let me ask you, was your wife vegetarian with you prior to going vegan?
Yeah, we were both the same.
Okay.
She watches, we were watching these movies together, and we kind of made the decision together, which is great, to do this 100%. And, like I said, for some reason right now, like it's been 6 months now, something just seems like this is permanent. Like, I don't know if you can relate to that, but other times, you've gotten excited, but there's just something different now. And part of it is, I think anyway, is a bit of I hate to say ignorance, but almost habitual things that I do, like oil in, frying vegetables in oil, and this in oil, throwing some cheese on a burger. It's like mindless almost, or whatever.
Will, this is an excellent point, Will, because I think this is what the majority of the population does. They have these habits. They've been doing them since they were, since they were raised. So they just think it's normal. They don't see what's behind a package of meat. They don't know what's going on back there, and they don't know the health potential that they have in their own body if they change their habits. And it's like, once you see these benefits for yourself, you see the physical benefits, you're not being unethical anymore, and it's better for the environment. It's like, if any intelligent person who examines this objectively, I don't see how you can reach any other conclusion. But anyway, go ahead and continue. So you and your wife, you got all the crap out of your cupboards, and you started this vegan. Would you say it was kind of a McDougall or Esselstyn style vegan? And it sounds like you've done a lot of recipes. You're kind of creating your own recipes, that sort of thing.
Yeah, what happened was, it's kind of interesting. When I get interested, like as soon as I saw those movies, I got totally interested, and then I go online, I just start researching the crap out of it to like totally. I've done this in a few different topics. I tend to, in my mind at least, discover the cream of the crop. Like, I'll dig in, absorb everything.
Yeah.
And somehow I sort of always seem to zoom in on what I feel is the best solution. So that I was looking at like developing applications for like smartphones and iPads, and I, looked at everything, and somehow like each time I like to search, and I know how to research things, and so anyways, when we got rid of the stuff, when we saw the movies and that, I started reading all these books. Like I mentioned, Starch Solution,
Yep.
Pleasure Trap, and
Yep.
some of the Engine 2 diet and all that. What happened was I decided, well, I got to eat way more vegetables, definitely. So I went and bought this griddler 5-in-1 thing that you can grill inside, electric grill.
Huh.
You can grill asparagus and zucchini and all that. I've always liked zucchini. So I went and bought that. And the first day we said, okay, we're going to grill a whole bunch of vegetables. So I got the zucchini, the asparagus and all that, and grilled this vegetable. So I had a big plate of all these vegetables. I ate this plate, and I was still totally starving.
Yeah.
Totally ravenous. And I went and got more. I think we had some more upstairs, so I ate more. And I was like, and you sort of feel a little bit full in your stomach, but it's like, I'm not satisfied or something. So, and my wife was like, well, maybe you just got to get used to the feeling, your stomach is, maybe stretched or whatever from the other stuff. And it's just an adjustment. But like, I grew up in a family, food is, big and very important. And I was just thinking to myself, this isn't going to work. Like, I can't do this. I can't be hungry.
Yeah.
I can't go for hours and think, well, okay, in a few hours later, I'll have another meal. It's just not going to work.
Will, it's really great common sense that you did that, because there's a lot of folks who try and do this like high vegetable, low carb thing, and they do like 1,500 calories, or what is it, 15? They do low calorie, and then after like 6 months or a year, they're out. So it's cool that you figured that out. Now, how did you resolve it?
Well, I was looking at these books, picked up like the Starch Solution, and they Dr. McDougall talked about starch as far as like an energy source, and how potatoes and that have more starch complex in them in the food, and the other stuff doesn't have as many, and so I made some potatoes, and I was so full, it was unbelievable. Like, one thing that I never really did before was try different foods and think about how they made you feel, or how it was like just ate whatever, and basically I ate this mashed potatoes with some corn or something on the side, and I was so full,
Yeah.
And I was like,
Eureka!
Yeah, it was a huge, like, I want to kiss Dr. McDougall now. Like, because I don't know if you go through this, but maybe different people have different hunger aspects, but you sort of feel like you're thinking about food. You eat, like in the past, you eat something, and maybe it doesn't keep you for very long. So then you're going to eat some snacks. And I used to work, and I'd have coffee and like trail mix and stuff like that.
Yep.
And it's almost like you're always fighting this hunger.
Right.
And so basically, it was like the best thing, of all the stuff right now. I'd say the fact that I discovered the satiation of the potato. I actually went online and searched, foods, and there's this chart, all the different foods, how satiating they are, and it's like this linear thing. And then potato is way off the chart, like way above anything else.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And so that's like a key component to me, because if I eat something potato based, like not just one baked potato, but a nice pile of potatoes, I'll be full for 3+ hours. Like, I don't feel like I need to snack or eat anything else.
I'm sure you're aware of these, but there's a study that Dr. McDougall references where they did just potatoes. They ate potatoes only for like 30 days, and the people had amazing results. And you probably know this guy. Is he in Iowa? He's trying to promote potato buying, and he just lived on, 20potatoesaday.com? Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge part of it. So I wouldn't say that I looked at fruit like 80-10-10 as far as raw as an option. I have read 80-10-10 and that, but I think a lot of it comes down to my past and these meals, like the typical meals, and
Well,
most of these engine twos and all that are similar. They're not necessarily raw food.
well, I'm glad you say that, and I wonder if you might just express a little more about that. Why did you not consider 80-10-10 a viable option? You think it was primarily cultural, just potatoes from family background, or were there some other reasons?
Yeah, I think it's just dealing with the habitual meals that I had. Like during Ryder says about fruits, like people think it's a snack. You have an apple or something in between, lunch and dinner. So
Right.
that's probably part of it. I don't. What I'm trying to do right now is I want people who eat. Like I consider myself 80-10-10 from the perspective of the ratio of carbs, fat, and protein.
Yes.
But I'm not raw, and I don't really want to. I think all of us should get along because the meat and the dairy and that's the big issue, right?
Amen. Amen. I love that. Love what you're saying.
I mean, I could talk
Well,
about fruit being expensive and like if I get up in the morning and my wife's sleeping, do I want to blend in the Vitamix and wake her up? Like, just little things.
yeah.
But I could eat bananas. I love them. And I do eat some fruit. Um, but anybody, if you're eating fruit, the best to you. And I think all these people are on the same page essentially. But
Yeah.
so I'm trying my best right now to just help people that want to kind of cook starches, as far as recipes and that type of thing.
Okay. So, can you tell me a little bit about uh, positive benefits of having made this change? You've already said that you lost a significant amount of weight. Did you notice any other physical improvements?
Um, yeah, like I think that I was mentioning when I eat these certain meals, it's kind of interesting because it's not that I think about it. It's like the pleasure trap. I look at it like that. Like say a bag of chips or something, right? You eat this bag of chips and you're like, it tastes great and it's salty, and you eat the whole thing and then you feel like crap.
Right.
And it's not. It's like drinking and getting hungover. I guess it's like
Yeah.
you still do it again, right? So you kind of compare the benefits, the pain and the pleasure, and you go, okay, I'm willing to go through it again. As you get older, you don't want to really be hungover, uh, like it used to be. So uh,
Right.
I actually mentioned this in a recent video about like the addict mentality. Like I think of myself, it's always going to be there, these tempting, amazing foods. But so there's, as far as feeling better, I would say that there's some benefit from that, like the post, like especially dinners when I eat these big dinners, how I don't have that feeling anymore. I mean, I'm satiated, but I'm not.
There's not like a brick in your stomach.
Yeah, that uncomfortable aspect.
Yeah.
Um, I noticed, like, I don't think that it's going to necessarily cure everything, um, that people have. Um, like, I get up sometimes. I noticed I wake up earlier. I don't know if
Yep.
that's, um,
You
if
don't need
that's
you don't need as much sleep. You don't need as much
it's
sleep. Yeah.
yeah, but some if I'm depending on what I'm doing, like I'm using my brain, I'm on the computer. I find that sometimes around 3 o'clock, I do get tired. I might need sometimes I don't, you might think about a nap or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to turn off your brain, in the afternoon, but
No, I think naps are very smart. Resting, yeah, that's smart.
it's not like I have, you want to talk about energy. I've noticed sometimes I do a little bit of exercise in that, and I'm trying to figure out what I tend to do is after breakfast, maybe an hour or two after breakfast is a good time for me to work out.
Okay.
I'm not like an evening person as far as getting the energy to, and maybe that's habitual. Like I used to spend my evenings watching TV, after dinner and um, whatever, playing guitar and stuff like that. So I tend to be fairly sedentary. I don't think I'd really want to start lifting weights or doing any vigorous things in the evenings. It's just a cycle. I guess so. Mornings would be better as far as that goes. So not being as full and sort of lethargic helps to some extent with that. As far
Have you
as the food goes.
have you noticed anything in terms of like congestion in the lungs or easier breathing, clarity of mind, that sort of thing?
I haven't noticed anything. I never really had any issues, but my wife Bonnie, she noticed her allergies were gone. Like we moved to the East Coast 3-4 years ago, and it's a little more humid, and the pollen's flying around in the spring, and she'd take the antihistamines and all that, and she never took any of that stuff this spring and summer. So we kind of like, hey, just noticed that, a little bit after the fact. So I don't have any nasal or that type of issues.
All right.
So.
All right. So, and you kind of have said this already, but maybe we'll say a little more about it, is that one of the things you want to do with your site is provide an example of a low-fat, high-carb diet with maybe moderate to low exercise. You want to see what benefits you can get from that. And you mentioned earlier that I think you initially lost weight being vegan, but now you start to gain some weight on the vegan diet. Is that? Did you say that?
What happened was, I mentioned in one video that it was really easy, and what I mean is, like, I feel that if you go 100% into it, there could be some aspects where your taste buds change and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to stay in both areas and eat a little bit of this or that, cheese or oil or whatever, the temptations are always there. So I don't know. I just feel that going 100% seemed easy, and maybe because of the meals as well, being full, like on these meals that I'm creating, and
okay. But so you lost. What's the total amount of weight you lost since starting the vegan diet?
I lost. What happened was it dropped 20 pounds.
Yep.
That was about mid-October, and then I bought this dip, it's called a pull-up tower. It's a 3-in-1. It's a device. It's a tower for doing pull-ups and chin-ups.
Yep.
It's got a dip handle on it.
Okay.
And on the bottom, there's a couple of handles that you can do push-ups on. And it's just a few bars, metal bars, whatever. You hook them up together, pretty quick to put together. And I couldn't do a pull-up.
I can relate, man. I can barely do one. I'm working on it.
Yeah, they're not easy. So just to back up a little bit, two things happened before I get into the details, because I have a spreadsheet where I put the weight and sort of, if I did any exercise or something.
Right.
And
that's the engineer in you, man.
That's the engineer. I'm not as bad as some people are, but I just thought I want to sort of plot a graph and see what's happening.
That's cool. I love it.
And the other thing that happened, because I look back, I wouldn't remember certain things, is Durian Ryder was talking a lot about drinking water before meals. He's got that little intro before each video.
Right.
And plant-based athlete Jay is also mentioning it quite a bit. So I started, and there is water in vegetables, like in potatoes and fruit and stuff. So, people who eat a lot more vegetables and fruit probably don't have to necessarily drink it all as liquid, separately. But I looked back and I started drinking water. I fill up a glass, fairly often during the day.
Yep.
And so I noticed on the graph that, so I hit the 180, I hit the low point, and then right at the time when I started, because I mentioned that I drank water and then I got this dip tower, it flattened a bit, and it's gone up a few pounds since then. Like right now it's 2 pounds above so not much.
But you think it's added weight in muscle? Is that accurate?
I think it's water and muscle. I was reading, but that's the thing, is the next part of the confusion is measuring, because the scale itself isn't great. I think it's a good relative measurement. I think that I still would like to get the overall weight to go down, but
okay.
I saw all these pictures. A woman was 140 this way and 140 that way. And it was like a massive difference. So I also have I bought a body fat measurement. It's the electronic thing you hold.
Okay.
It's just your upper body. It's not a full scale. And that percentage, is going down, which is good.
Yep.
What else? The other thing is the strength gains from, actually what I started was chin up is when your hands are facing you.
Yep.
I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even do one. And so they talk about, I looked online, you start doing negatives where you grab a bar and you lower yourself.
Yeah.
And then I was available to start doing a full chin up. And then once I could start to do a whole bunch of chin ups, last week, say I switched, once I could do 20 or 30, I started to go palms facing away in a wider grip.
Yeah.
And you do as many as you can, and then you start doing negatives. And then the other thing I'm trying to, what I want to talk about with the weights is what I'm trying to do is like twice a week for about an hour each time. So I don't consider that to be a lot as far as bodybuilding goes, but what I do is full compound exercises, like multiple body parts, using body weight. If you look at these major bodybuilders, I think they tend to say that you shouldn't do that. If you're doing chest, it might be 5 days before you do chest again. So even though they're working out all the time, one day it's chest and back, and another time it's arms and legs or whatever. So if you look at the repetition between the chest and the next iteration, it's around 5 days, because you need time to grow. Your body has to heal and repair itself. So my theory right now is do this stuff, and because I'm doing basically my whole body in one shot, it's like, let's wait 4 days or so.
Yeah.
And then the next time, if I can do more chin ups or whatever, that's a good sign. If I can't do as many as last time, then maybe I didn't wait long enough. So doing it that way, I think, there's going to be, it's not even maybe twice a week, because you're going to wait 3-4 days or more, 5 days even.
Do you do arms one day, legs another day, or you do just upper body?
Basically, it's upper body. Like what I do is the pull up, the dip, and the push up. I'm doing this other thing, the planche. Have you heard about that?
Planks? You mean like for abdominals?
No, they call it planche. It's like a gymnastic thing where your hands are back and you're kind of supporting you're horizontally off the ground.
Okay.
Your hands are, and that's like not going to happen any day soon. But what it is it's a static hold like this where it's all shoulder, and your arms are completely straight.
Yep.
And so generally, all I'm trying to do is body weight exercises, nothing crazy.
Very cool. And not a lot of aerobic. Not a lot of any aerobic.
Well, the weather's getting a bit colder, but we like to walk, so it wouldn't be like running or anything like that.
Yeah.
I've got a treadmill, and a lot of times, I'll walk on the if I'm at home, and sometimes, lately I read about like cranking up the incline.
So you do a little more exercise than I was thinking. You're not. I know you're not doing like elite training, but you're doing moderate exercise. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't want it to be. If they talk about, let's say you burn 300 calories, if you take a walk.
Right.
They say that if you had a muffin or some kind of typical Starbucks or whatever, it's not even worth. You're not going to really exercise off the the food that you're eating. So what I try to do is like just enough to kind of for health reasons, as far as like you lose muscle mass or as you age, your bone density, and then getting the heart moving a little bit. That's basically it. Yeah.
I think I've found that there's some truth to what During Rider says, is if you get enough carbs in there, you'll kind of want to move more. You kind of you feel inclined to go out and do stuff. But I hear you, and you sound like a busy guy, man. You're doing a lot of guitar, a lot of IT work. So I understand the time issue.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through a typical day for you? Like, tell us what you might have for breakfast, what would you do lunch, what for dinner?
Yeah. Pretty much every morning I have a bowl of cereal. Like I read in the Engine 2, it's called Rip's Big Bowl, he called it.
Yeah.
I call mine Willie's Big Bowl, but the bowls you get in a set, just that normal small bowl like that's not really big enough. It's just too small.
Yeah.
So I have these bigger white bowl. I've got a picture in a video. I don't know if I have a video yet, but I got a picture of it. So what I'll do is there's this shredded wheat. They're little squares. And I just want to mention a little bit about cereal. Like generally, most cereal is not really that great, as far as there's sugar and all sorts of processed stuff.
Frosted Flakes.
Yeah, all that stuff. But the shredded wheat that I got, all it is whole grain wheat or something. There's two things in it. So it's not the worst. It's there's way worse out there.
Yeah, I like that too. I eat a shredded wheat for breakfast sometimes. Yeah.
I had cereal all my life, cold cereal. So my wife makes oatmeal, and I'm not a warm cereal or breakfast kind of guy. So
okay.
Just that's part of the history there. But so I'll put not too much, but I put a little bit of shredded wheat. And then I pour the rolled oats, like not the quick oats, but the rolled oats. I just pour it on.
Huh? You eat it straight with milk?
Yeah, I don't cook it like a lot of people make oatmeal, but I just pour it on and eat it straight.
Do you let it soak a little bit, or do you eat it dry?
It soaks in. I put a fair amount of milk, so it kind of soaks in over time. But I just started eating it, so some of it's going to soak in. But at the beginning, I eat stuff that's probably not soaked in.
I think muesli is like that. Muesli has I think oats in it. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
I used to eat that Harvest Quaker Crunch, or what was it called? I forget. It's like honey. It's a crunchy cereal, but it's a lot of fat in there and stuff like that. Like there's nuts.
Do you use like a rice or a soy milk on top of your cereal?
Yeah, I kind of started with rice, and now I'm doing almond milk, and I make my own as well.
Okay.
I think rice that I was eating had a lot of sugar in it at the time or something. So yeah, I'll make my own almond milk, and I buy the unsweetened.
Yep.
But so I put shredded wheat, rolled oats, a little bit of milled flaxseed.
Nice.
Somebody told me that I shouldn't use that because there's fat in there, and like a guy on YouTube, and so right now I'm mixed feelings. Like I think you want the omega-3, and it's not like I'm eating seeds and nuts like snacking on them. I just sprinkle a little bit of this. So for now, I'm kind of sticking to that.
Why do you have a concern with sweetener in rice milk when you feel like you've kind of broken through this carbohydrate myth? Could you talk a little bit about maybe refined sweeteners, or what you're concerned about?
Yeah, that's a really good point. There's a few topics that I'm really pushing to get more information on. Let's just talk about sugar, and I'm all learning. We're all learning here. So,
right.
I read an article by Jeff Novick. He's a registered dietitian. He works with Dr. McDougall, and at the molecular level, he's saying that all these sugars are basically the same. So his argument is that the issue is really the concentration of sugar.
Okay.
So because people will say, well, refined products in the store, refined sugars in cereal is bad. And if you think about it, I don't really think that's true. I think I'm not saying everybody should go eat, breakfast cereal with sugar on it, but
right.
Because we're trying to eat whole foods and get the sugars naturally.
And all the other nutrients, right.
I think that the real point is, if we ignore calories right now, the real issue I think is you're eating food that doesn't really have nutrients in it. Like if you ate some kind of a product that had all sorts of refined, and not to mention chemicals and things. So when people talk about obesity, I don't really think it's the sugar, the refined sugars.
Amen.
And I'm really trying to understand this because I emailed yesterday Dr. McDougall about sugar and dates and this and that. And his basic idea, if you know, not just his, but the science, is that sugar doesn't turn to fat. It does in pigs, and they're able to, pigs and things like that. But sugar doesn't really turn to fat. It's the fat that you eat that turns to fat. Basically gets stored as fat.
Right.
So, the argument that the sugars, no matter what it is, really shouldn't be really a problem.
Yeah, and this is really criminal because it's this misinformation is driving this whole industry of paleo, primal diets, and all that crap. So this really needs to be made public in a bigger way.
I really want to get more and clarify this to people, because what I'm trying to say is that refined sugars and even sweeteners, artificial, it's not that they're making you fat. It's that there's no nutrients, and they're very dense as far as calories go. Now, as far as the rice milk or whatever, if I have a choice, I would just buy the regular unsweetened milks. So it's not that I'm opposed to. It's just that they'll put sugar in so many things, so there's a lot of insidious calories that you don't really need there. Like if you buy pasta sauce or spaghetti sauce in the can or the jar, they'll throw sugar in there.
Right.
I mean, they want their stuff to taste good. So to me, it's like, let's just try to find sauces and other things that don't really have that added. It's not that...
You're just shooting for as natural as you can get.
Yeah, I think that's the part of it. Like, I've had people email me already saying, they gained all this weight eating bananas and dates. There's, they're eating way too many calories overall. But I think I try to understand this and say, well, what if somebody's normal weight calorie requirement was 2,500 calories a day, and they ate an extra 1,000 calories of carbs. Well, they shouldn't really gain weight because it's all carbs. But the thing is, a lot of these foods have some fat in them, like 10%, right? So some of that fat is in that excess calories. So,
well, I think a missing element in this, which Durian tries to emphasize, is that there appears to be a phenomena which occurs over time. This is not something that happens in like 3 months. So, there's many folks I've heard from that they lose weight even though they increase calories. If they go all raw, they start eating a ton of fruit. They increase, like that interview I just did with Jay. He increased his diet 1,000 calorie, and he was losing weight. So I know there are people who gain weight, and I do think there has to be. You have to recognize. I mean, you're an engineer. There is a calorie in, calorie out that has relevance. Beyond some point. If I'm eating, say, 10,000 or 20,000 calories of fruit, I'm probably going to gain weight. I mean, if we go far enough, you're going to gain weight. But it seems that there's a difference between a raw, high fruit, raw diet and, say, a cooked food diet in terms of weight gain and weight loss. Because I've heard of several cases of folks who got so thin on a raw diet, their families freaked out, and they had to go back to eating starches just to gain enough weight so their families would stop hassling them. So something happens on this raw food thing. I don't know if it just burns cleaner. There's probably some scientific reasons for it, but it seems the case that over time, a high fruit, high raw, you're gonna get thin. But I understand there are folks that they have to control that to some degree. Like Swayze Foster had an interesting thing. She was gaining a little bit of weight, and then she started eating more greens. And what happened was she didn't eat as much fruit after that, because the greens, what can happen is if you're undernourished, if you're not getting all the proper nutrients, you're hungry. It's like most of the people on these conventional diets, sad diets, they're all really starving because they're not getting their proper nutrition. So you keep going to McDonald's, but you're not getting any nutrition. So the same thing could happen in with different nutrients on a very healthy diet where there might be one thing missing. And I think that's what happened with Swayze. She added more greens into her already raw diet, and then her need for her desire for food decreased, so her calorie intake went down, but she was actually satisfied because some of the nutrients she'd been missing were supplied by those greens. So there's a lot of different variables. But I think Durian Ryder's talking about something that he's witnessed, both personally and with people he's coached. So something happens when you do this high raw, high calorie intake. Now maybe they're all doing elite amounts of exercise. I don't know if they all are. Maybe they're all burning huge amounts of calories through exercise. I don't know the answer to that. But Durian Ryder's a pretty clear, straightforward, honest dude, and I think he's pushing this for a reason. So anyway. So what was the other thing I was going to ask you? I want to go through nutrients with you. So from the things you've read and determined for yourself, what's your take on vitamin B12?
Yeah, some of these things, it's still a journey to kind of figure out, I guess. But Dr. McDougall was saying if you go, well, I'm not sure if it's vegetarian, but if you go off of, if you go vegan, the B12 is stored quite a long time, like 3 years or something before he even recommends supplementing. And then Jeff Novak, I just read this, that he's like, go get tested, figure out what your levels are, and then respond to that, which totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I looked at one of the almond milks that I bought, and was it B12? No, but vitamin D, I think it was. But some of them are enriched or whatever you want to call it. But so right now I'm not totally worried about it. But I was gonna plan on. I sort of had this feeling like when you're losing fat, that all these toxins are getting flushed out of your system.
Yep.
And could be even in your blood and that. So I didn't really want to do a blood test. Like I already had one from my previous diet. Somebody asked me why didn't I go do one, at the beginning, but it's like, well, I already have that. So basically I'm trying to, I was going to wait a bit.
Hey, since you're bringing this up, can I ask you, how much does it cost for you to do a full blood panel? Is that covered by your insurance? Do you have to spend a lot of money on that? I mean, a lot of these folks are recommending, frequent tests, and to me, this would be really expensive. What's your take on that?
I've had some in Canada. It's basically covered. We would go in and but most of the time, the blood tests are done because of a problem, like some, you don't. But I'm going to go in there and say, hey, just for fun, I want to do a blood test.
Right.
And I have a doctor who's a little bit difficult as far as that goes. So that's partly why I'm waiting, I guess. But what I was thinking I would do is say, I went to a vegan diet. I'm concerned about some of my levels like B12 and vitamin D and all that type of thing. Iron is another one, that type of thing.
Right.
And see where we're at. But I've never really tested blood for those types of things ever in my life. It's like, so, and I'm not really worried about it, like protein and all that stuff.
Right. So as of now, you're not yet taking a B12 supplement.
Actually, I started to. It's kind of interesting you mentioned that. At one point, my wife was cutting one up into fairly small and giving me a little, say, hey, try that, just once in a while.
Yeah.
And then the other day, I started, hearing about it. You guys were mentioning it and other people, and so I started taking one 2 or 3 days in a row. I don't even know. I think it was how much it is, like as far as the quantity. But I got really bad diarrhea and cramps.
Oh, that's very interesting.
And I pretty much tied it to the B12 supplement. And so I searched online, and there's definitely some people or some stuff on that. Now, I mean, this is a concentrated thing that's in a pill, and like my wife was saying, she cuts it into 4 pieces, but I took it literally for a few days in a row.
Is that something you just swallow completely, or is it something you let dissolve under your tongue?
I put it under my tongue.
Okay.
I think sometimes I might have swallowed some of it.
Okay.
because I think one time or so I put it on the tongue and then I ended up, swallowing it probably before I put. Most of the time I try to put it under the tongue.
Okay, because I've used a sublingual and I've never had any experience like you're describing, but that's interesting, very
Yeah,
interesting.
it just happened, so I'm not sure. Like, we have to monitor what is. I didn't eat anything different, so. But the reason I'm mentioning or that I think that's what it is years ago I was working downtown Calgary and stressing out quite a bit. And my sister told me to take a B complex. It wasn't just B12, but it had different types of Bs in it. And I took it, and I got really bad cramps and stuff again. So,
No, now that's common. A lot of vitamins and mineral supplements are pretty nasty, and I've over the years tried different kinds, and you can see all kinds of strange results if you got a bad vitamin, and really it's hard to find good supplements. You got to pay a lot of money, I think. So I just pretty much stay away from them. Except I do think B12 is important. What's your take on D? That's probably interesting for you because you guys have a pretty long winter up there. What do you do with the vitamin D?
yeah, I've got a supplement for that. It is. I definitely want to get checked and sort of see where I'm at, because I'm just guessing otherwise. But we try to get out. I mean, now it's getting lower in the sky and that type of thing. And I'm actually in the basement right now, and I spend a lot of time down here.
Yeah.
So, but since I got involved in this with Dr. McDougall, I was like, oh, let's try to get outside and that. But sometimes if it's a bit cooler, you might have your skin covered. So
Right. Right.
I'm definitely going to get checked out. But I've taken it fairly, off and on over the last 5-6 months.
And is the supplement you're taking, is that a D2 or a D3?
It's a D3.
Okay.
I need to go more into this, into more detail and really get up on it as far as, how much. But some of the stuff I read, there's some stores and that. And like I said, the almond I checked, and, the nutritional yeast has B12. If
Do
you
you
look
know?
at,
Do you know if is your D3 a vegan D3, or are you concerned about that?
I'm not sure. I'd have to check on that.
Okay. So apparently there are some D3s that are vegan now. I think it used to be more difficult, but I think the D3 vegans are pretty expensive. But how about iodine? Are you at all concerned with iodine? Have you looked into that at all?
Not really. In relation to salt, the way I look at it is because it's iodized salt or whatever. Like, I'm not eating sea salt or whatever.
So you use table salt, iodized table salt.
Yeah. The way I'm looking at it right now, I sort of see everything in a scale. Like, if you went from meat or dairy and eggs and all that and oil and all that stuff, and you go plant-based, like, that's a massive adjust. That's a
Yes.
huge change, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
environmental, animals, but health and just habitual changes. I mean, there's a lot of emotion to food. Like, you see people commenting about food. I'm trying to provide like healthy, starch-based, comfort foods that people can transition to in either direction, if they're going raw or if they're coming from meat and dairy. And like I mentioned, I think somewhere that, like, you'll see people talking about cleanses and kale and all this stuff, and I'm not opposed to the kale, but there's a perception. I get made, like, somebody I know, like, they make fun of you, like the protein thing and the weakness, and some of the people that are really lean and small, like their slight frame,
Yep.
like Moby and that type of thing.
Yep.
And so I want to sort of be a bit, in the middle ground, and as far as physique, a little bit bigger muscle, not just. I mean, everything has its purpose. If you're riding your bike, you don't want extra muscle and all that. But
No, I hear you. I hear
so
you. Yeah.
a nice physique, a medium, not a bodybuilder, but just a nice physique, lean, and
Well, Will, you're reminding me of. I remember going to a raw food lecture, like this was a long time ago, maybe 15, 20 years ago, and I saw that the people that were attending it, several of them looked anorexic. They didn't look real healthy.
Yeah.
So, and that was just a subjective kind of perception at that moment, and it was just a few people. But I think there have been some issues with veganism in the past, and we don't necessarily know how healthy folks were, and especially we hear about people doing a high raw, high fat vegan diet. That's not good. So I hear you. You want to have a decent looking physique. You don't want to look emaciated. I think that's reasonable. You know.
Yeah, and the thing is too, like I don't want to. There's a real change in perception out there where people are getting heavier and heavier. So, they look at Freely and say she's, anorexic or too skinny or whatever. And the models, they're trying to show like heavier models on TV and stuff. And I don't really like that trend. So I think that we've lost touch with what a normal, healthy body looks like.
Well, that's a huge point too. Yeah, there's a pathogenic norm. Like when society is 25% obese, you don't really know what normal is. So yeah, I mean, Freely looks like a model, and who's that other girl? Is it Lonnie Jean? The girl's a model. She's a beautiful model, and they're hassling her because she's eating a lot of bananas. I mean, the girl's she resolved all her health issues. She looks beautiful. Her skin's beautiful. Not that physical beauty is necessarily an indicator of physical health, but it can be an indicator. The skin and the clarity of the eye and that sort of thing. So
yeah, like so. What I was saying about the salt thing is that everything's kind of to scale. So what Dr. McDougall was saying is that if you're cutting out all that refined food, which has a ton of salt in a lot of that stuff, then you've made this massive improvement. And he's saying, you could potentially put a little bit of salt to taste on your actual plate. Not like don't throw a lot of salt in the food as you cook it, but you can put a little bit of salt just to taste. And I bought one of those blood pressure monitors.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it's gone down. There was one reading. So my wife's was 115, 117 over something, 60 or something. And mine, I'd go in this thing and it was 145. If I would go into the doctor or the drugstore where they have those arms there, the tester.
Right.
And I bought one of these Panasonic. It's a good machine, and it went down, and it was getting to 120 something, and then 115, and I have a picture where it was 112, and there's even another one which was 105.
Yeah.
I almost felt lightheaded when I did that reading, and I thought, like maybe I'm going too far here.
Yeah.
But so, obviously the blood pressure thing is a concern with salt and that. There's other. What's your take on the on iodine as far as the requirements?
Well, I kind of got this bug in my ear from Don Bennett. He's focusing on iodine a lot. I think if you're using iodized table salt, you probably don't have anything to worry about. I mean, they used the commercial iodized table salt. They used it to eradicate iodine deficiencies in the United States. So, what Don Bennett has said is that there are two types of iodine, and only one is supplied by the iodized table salt. But my sense is that it's not a huge issue. He's more knowledgeable about it than I am, and he'd been doing a raw food diet for a long time and at a very high level, and he added some iodine supplementation, and he noticed a benefit. So I think that's one reason he promotes it. But I think you got to be careful. We don't want to get into breaking this down into all these separate nutrients and trying to chase after individual nutrients when in a whole food there's such a complex variety of phytonutrients we don't even know what they all are. So I'm careful about going down this nutrient deficiency road, but I do think it's wise for vegans to be conscious of a couple. Definitely B12, definitely vitamin D if you're not getting tons of sun, and perhaps iodine. I'm not totally sure on the iodine thing.
Yeah, I'll definitely look more into it. There's that holistic versus reductionist, the Colin Campbell thing.
Yeah.
So, like, there's people that lived for long periods of time just on potatoes, like, because, where they lived or whatever. Not that it's an ideal situation to just eat one food, but they were able to survive, and it's like, and some things maybe take years before you burn out, the stores. So,
yeah,
I'm sort of feeling like I've got with some of the products that I had, I was taking a multivitamin for, off and on for years and years. And now I read about them, oh, geez, what was I doing, But
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
that mindless stuff that everybody does, and you think, well, I'll just take this and it'll cover me for stuff that I might be missing.
right.
But over time, I'm going to delve into some of that stuff. But to make sure, do the tests and make sure that those things are on the right track. But the majority sticking to this low fat. Like I have people, I went to a store and they're like, well, you need fat. Your brain needs fat, and
Yeah,
because you wanted like some sort of oil, coconut oil or whatever.
right,
And
right.
I'm sort of on Durian Rider's thing. Like your body runs on carbs, and that's going to give you the energy to do everything else.
Yeah,
And food has fat, like but people just say protein, fat. What about this? What about that? And I just feel that this is the majority. Like eating this way consistently. That's the other thing, is doing this thing consistently um, in the
yeah.
future is really important.
You bring up a great point, and you're reminding me again of Swayze Foster, who did a blood test after being raw for a long time, and she found that her fat levels had evened out to a perfect level, and she was doing raw, a lot of fruit and a good amount of greens. So I know that a plant-based low-fat diet will supply enough healthy fats. And I think another element to consider in this is when you're eating unhealthy foods, it throws off these balances. So, if you're eating plant-based oils, it throws off that omega-3/6 balance. And sometimes just removing the artificial oil allows the balance to get back to normal. So one important thing is to make sure you're getting a good source. Like you could say flax is probably good to add a little bit of flax into the diet, but another aspect of this is to get the bad oils out so that you don't get those funky balances in the first place. You know?
Yeah, like I think the majority of the benefit's going to be. I mean, like I look at what I'm doing and I'm saying, well, there's so much stuff. People will come up with all sorts of things to criticize a little something in there.
Yeah.
There's a thing about baking potatoes at high temperatures. These acrylamides. And the
Okay.
thing is, if you I looked at the science, and I'm not like going crazy into the science, but if you go a little bit past the article or the video, it turns out that it's mostly like that on potato chips and French fries. And I'm like, well, they used oil,
Right.
and some of
Right.
this oil is not even like just peanut oil, but it's got like meat, from the cooking of the animals or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
but it's high temperature oils and this and that. It's like, well, what if you baked it just a potato, and so like, how far are you going to go with some of this stuff? And like, if you do holistic analysis, in my mind, it's difficult to really determine if certain things are going to be a problem, right? Like if you eat 80%, like Asia or whatever, they eat 80% rice or carbs, and let's say they throw a bit of meat or fish on there,
Yeah.
and they live to 90 or whatever, should they not eat any and it's still okay? Should they have gone to 20%? Is it helping? Should it be 5%? And so, like when they do a study and they say that diet pop makes people fat because it makes them hungrier or more addictive or whatever. Well, these people are eating diet pop, but they're eating junk food like McDonald's, and then they have Diet Coke.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm quite skeptical. Even
Yeah.
even on our side, like on ours, there was something even Dr. Grieger did about what was it called, fenugreek.
Oh, right.
It was supposed to show that their muscle gains or something,
Right.
but it turned out that it was some product by a health food company, like a weight gain or muscle company,
Right.
and it wasn't actually fenugreek. It was their product that had fenugreek in it, so you don't even know if it's so because people say even in our diet, like plant-based, 100%, healthy, you can nitpick at that stuff, and
Well, this is a great point. It's a great point. It's like, and I feel like I'm fighting this a lot when I'm having discussions with paleo primal folks on the internet. You know, the benefits are so tremendous when you go on this plant-based diet, not only health-wise, but also ethically and ecologically. They pull this stuff out of the air. Or, I'm talking to people about how we evolved on plants, and you get these weird kind of, you know, they'll draw from the farthest examples. They'll draw out these crazy, it's all supposition oftentimes. I mean, yes, humans can eat a lot of different things. The fact that lots of people eat McDonald's today does not mean that McDonald's is a natural diet. The fact that lots of people 1,000 years ago ate meat because it was all they had to eat, it doesn't mean that it's a natural diet. You know, these simplistic arguments, it's like just look at your hands, look at your digestive tract, look at your teeth, you know, pass roadkill on the highway, are you attracted to it? There's basic, simple principles which tell you how you're inclined to eat, and it's just crazy. You run into this idiotic nonsense.
Yeah, I think a
But
lot of people are just eating mindlessly. Like, there's some people are going to make a thing. Oh, I need to eat meat because I want protein, or I'm going to weight lift or whatever, like the paleo. But the majority of people are just eating what they typically ate, and it's a habitual thing. They're not. I don't think they're necessarily doing it because of the ancestry or whatever. But what I've done, like Plant Positive,
yeah,
that guy.
yeah,
I mean, he even blows me away, like scientific research, because we tend to just believe somebody, like an author or a
right.
website, and even on us, on our side of things, it's like just if somebody references a study, maybe just go take a look at it, because I've seen stuff on our side where they're talking about some nutrient or whatever, and I'll look at it and go, well, that's kind of bogus, like what they're saying. Um,
It's a good point. It's important to get science behind all this stuff. But I do think there's a place for common sense. I mean, we don't have claws. We're not inclined to jump on the back of a cow and bite its neck. I mean, I mean, isn't that common sense? I mean, so you can be taught from infancy that it's normal to eat cooked meats because your parents do it, but that's different than perceiving what might occur in nature. If you're in nature without tools, hunting implements, without modern technology, what are you going to eat? You know?
yeah, like that's why I think that people aren't really consciously making that decision. And like, I had people that say, they don't want to see a video on the internet, like they don't want me to post something, slaughterhouse or something.
Right.
It's like some people are kind of aware of it, but they just don't want to go there. And it's like they'll have to change what they eat. And there is an addiction. Like I totally believe that there's addiction there, social aspects to it, like going out having wings and beer after a game or whatever.
Right.
Um, it's just so once you get aware of it and you consciously decide. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of people on either side that are really like the meat eater, like the paleos, they're looking at it saying, well, I want to eat meat, justifying it. But a lot of people aren't really even thinking that much about it. And I think that, like, I see recipes, people posting even broccoli. Oh, look at this broccoli. It's all covered in cheese and oil. And then there's like the most disgusting things. They make jokes about bacon. There was this thing, George Takei, he's a funny guy on Facebook. And it was some pig or something sort of mounting a cow, like a real picture. And it said bacon cheeseburger. And like I said, not funny. Like it's people are just, they make jokes about bacon, and there's these bacon events and stuff, and it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's animals are products. They're not recognized as conscious beings. Um, but
Yeah.
I think I've kept you for a long time, Will. But let me ask you one more thing, and maybe we'll wrap it up. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you live in the world with this information. So it's cool, your wife is with you on this, and she's doing it with you. But how about did you guys? I guess you don't have. Do you guys have Thanksgiving up in Canada? You probably don't have Thanksgiving, but what do you do on holidays? You're gonna go Christmas. You're gonna see relatives. How do you live this way, and how does it come out in terms of people that are receptive, people that are not receptive, family members, watching people die when they don't have to? Tell me a little bit about all that.
Um, I have a pretty strong will. Like I'm shy, sort of a shy, quiet person, but when people attack me or at a dinner table or something like that, um, I stand up for myself. There's a guy on Facebook. It's a relative or an in-law, I guess. The muscle guy. You got to have protein, and if I post
Right.
salad, you get made fun of rabbit food or whatever. But I push right back.
Yeah.
But we had Thanksgiving, but ours is in October, and it's like your Columbus Day, I think.
Okay.
It's kind of nice in our perspective because it's not as close. It's like two things so close together. Up here. So,
Yeah.
but it's the same idea with Thanksgiving, and we went to my wife's family, and basically a couple things we'll do is we'll bring something, and we'll just eat that. Like maybe they have some things like corn and stuff like that. So we'll eat some of it. But I find if you don't really say anything, keep a low profile, it's almost like they don't notice, in some cases.
Okay.
I know some families will have really bad scenarios, but my family's in Ontario, so it's not an issue. But what did you ask about after the dealing with some of the?
Well, it's just, I guess, just generally, the social aspects of it, and determining when it's useful to try and share information, when it's useful maybe to just be quiet, when it's useful to push a little bit. We know what's happening. You know what's going on in these slaughterhouses, and you want to do something about it, but you don't want to become so offensive that you ostracize yourself from family and the rest of society. So,
Yeah, we
eh,
on Facebook we've made a few comments, and like if somebody posts something really gross as far as an unhealthy meal, and I don't think I should probably do that. What I did was I created the Potato Strong Facebook page to kind of take it off my personal profile. It's not like I want to hide it or anything, but
right, I got you.
it's just, and mostly it's food based. I'm not, but we like and share things about animals, like the SeaWorld thing and
Positive, yeah.
yeah, but what we want to do is live by example. So like my wife's 50, she looks really good. She's lost, and she wasn't really overweight, but she had just a little bit of fat maybe over the stomach, but it wasn't like a huge amount. But she's really narrow waisted, narrow hips, and she would say, well, there's some like the organs are, there's nowhere for it to go. There's a bit of, it wasn't like a big stomach or anything, but she lost, I think it was, well, on the scale, it was like 6, 7, 8 pounds, but she started doing a little bit of weight training. So we kind of guessed because of, the gains, a little bit of muscle gains, is that, at least 6, 8 pounds of fat. And for her, like from 118 to 112, I mean, that's a significant, and it wasn't like all over, and I think over time she'll probably get a little more definition, like in her arms and that, but they're starting to look good. And, she's 50, some of these people are 20, in their early 30s. It's not that they didn't work hard, but it's going to be that much more impressive.
Well, I'm glad you bring her up because I'd like to interview her if she'd ever be willing. And let's while we wrap it up, can you say again the name of your YouTube channel, and then is there also a corresponding Facebook page and a website? Just name them all.
Yeah, so these are all three similar, consistently named. I've got a Facebook page, Potato Strong, and so it's facebook.com/Potato Strong.
Okay.
The YouTube channel is called Potato Strong, and the website I just created recently was potatostrong.com.
Okay.
My Twitter still uses Will Kriski, so that's Will, WILLKRISKI, but I'm debating about, I've had multiple profiles in the past, and I'm sort of debating whether I want to try to maintain a lot of different things, or should I be, because Twitter, I don't get a lot of activity on I do some car stuff and that, and I don't get, either way, I don't get much activity. I may, but for now, yeah, it's all Potato Strong. I kind of took it from like Plant Strong. Engine 2 talked about Plant Strong, and like, it's funny though, when you think about the word plant, it's like a house plant, or, I'm not sure if that's the best word either, because like vegan has a negative connotation. plants sound like lettuce. You're eating a plant or something. Even like McDougal came up with starch-based, and it's like starch to iron your shirt.
Right, 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 right.
But so yeah, I'm going starch and potato to kind of make it based on the food. Like everything's potato based. So and strong is kind of like
I
yeah, you
like
got
that.
some strength, some vigor. It's not just
That's good. One thing that's popping into my mind, do you buy organic potatoes?
I don't always buy potato organic.
Okay.
I don't even the store that I go to now in my hometown doesn't even have them. Um,
Okay.
I want to get more organic over time
Okay.
for sure because I heard potato. They definitely have pesticides and a lot of stuff going on compared to other things, right?
All right.
It
Well,
kind
now,
of
and
it kind of boils down. I just want to say, like, from a perspective, like it could be a very serious issue, but going from what I ate before to this, I'm hoping that that's the majority because we all have cancer and stuff in our body, and I hope that the food is going to overpower and help a lot of that. And then some of the toxic stuff and organic stuff can make it even better. But I buy like a 10-pound bag or a 50-pound bag of potatoes, and sometimes I think there was like a little thing of potatoes on this, like organic, like, and I'm buying massive quantities. So, but definitely over time, I'm going to try to get more of that. And the farmers markets are kind of dead now. Like when I was buying them in the summer, some of the farmers provided, some of the farmers at the tables had organic food.
yep,
So definitely want to, delve into that some more.
yep. I hear you, man. I hear that practical argument. And there was something else I was going to ask. Oh, if people want to hear some of your music, is there a site they can go to hear you doing some music, or?
Yeah, I've got a website, willkriski.com. So it's, the same as I mentioned. And the YouTube channel is W Kriski.
Okay.
And what I do now is jazz guitar. I was a rock, kind of a metal rock player, blues and that. And so I've 5, 6, 7 years, I've transitioned to the jazz improvisation. So there's a bunch of videos, and I teach lessons. I have over 100 videos of lessons and performances and that. So
Cool, man. Well, Will, is there anything you'd like to add for the audience? Anything you'd like to throw in that we've missed? Anything that pops into your head? Here's your chance.
um, all I'd like to say is that, you know, for us going 100% and committing to this, with no exceptions, like no moderation, no cheating, junk foods, like just go 100% into it, because I think it adjusts your taste buds, and there's that addictive quality that I talked about. So just completely focusing on it. Um,
And
we, I,
you mean 100% low-fat cooked vegan? Is that what you mean?
yeah, like sticking to, even if you eat fruit raw, either way, like sticking to the low fat, high carb without any exceptions. Like people are talking about, well, you can eat this and that in moderation, and you can cheat and this and that. But I just think that sticking to it 100% is what has really changed our perspective. Because I've dieted and done things in the past, and not dieted per se, but just tried to cut stuff out. And I just feel that that's one of the reasons why we're really, like, we got rid of all the stuff in the house
Yeah,
that is tempting, in just
yeah.
oils. And I've never done that before. Like everything, cheese, oil, everything's gone. So that,
That's
um,
smart.
and I think that is, there's people that are saying, just related to that is, when people are contacting me and asking me questions, I think they're not being 100% honest. Like if they say they gain weight eating something, they just ate salad and they're getting heavy or something. Like, I'm not really aggressive at this point and assertive, but I'd like to say that, you're full of crap. Like, I'd have to watch somebody 24/7,
Yeah,
because people are saying, I'm sensitive or allergic to something. It's like,
yeah.
well, if you can't eat rice, eat quinoa, or try. If you can't eat this type of pasta, eat rice, or make those
Yeah, this,
changes, make those adjustments. And I don't even know how people can really determine some of those things when they're eating a bunch of different food during the day. So all I'm saying is, really stick to this, at home 100%, because I think that's where people are going to get the best benefits from. So,
well, Will, hey, man, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
thanks, Paul. It's been
It
awesome.
sounds like you're pretty busy, so I appreciate you hanging out for a while.
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much for interviewing me.
All right. And I look forward to watching more of your videos, man. I like your videos. So.
Yeah, I hope to do a lot more. And same with you. I'll be watching yours as well.
All right. Take it easy, my friend.
See you, man.
All right.
Bye.